All right, guys, welcome to my. I keep saying quick recap shows all the time because I decided, as opposed to doing video reviews as we're going over this, since there's 2 weeks before Major 3 qualifiers start up again on March 31st, I just decided throughout the 2 weeks we're going to pick uh, selective maps from specific series that were changing points throughout this major. We have whole 2 weeks to do this, so it will be videos focused on singular maps, breaking down every little thing that could have changed. And I think that'll be a lot more interesting as opposed to incorporating it in my overall thoughts of Championship Sunday. And kind of like the tournament overall. So I never expected Ultra to win. Not gonna lie, I saw Breaking Point's bracket like before the major, and I was like, "There's just no. I just don't see Ultra making making the finals." I honestly thought Subliners would actually come out and actually do a lot better, but a lot of teams fell flat this major. A lot of teams fell flat that don't warrant a roster change at all, but yeah, just a lot of up and down. As you can see, this game is very up and down. Sometimes when teams are up, they're down, and there's games and there's series that could have went other ways, and it would have changed the whole trajectory. This bracket would have looked a lot different just off of like singular maps or singular mistakes. There's just a lot to like break down throughout this 2 weeks that we'll get into, but overall thoughts on the major and the matches from Championship Sunday. So we started off with Ultra against Atlanta FaZe. So as you can even see from these statistics, FaZe heavily outslayed them throughout this whole series, but Ultra is able to come through with the S&D win, the control win, and the close map 4 win. As we go down here, so um, the map 1 was pretty straightforward with FaZe winning. That was pretty straightforward. It was back and forth, but I feel like FaZe just played it better overall in the end. We could even pull up the statistics for this. Um, Not a good map for a lot of players. Kleenex was completely shut down on that map. Both SMGs completely shut down. Simp and Abizi played very well on that map. And Slasher overall, not doubting the player he is, but everyone has like their bad tournaments and their bad games. And this tournament overall was not a good showing for him. And El Silo is going to be one of the maps that we break down throughout these 2 weeks. Toronto Ultra did a very good job at isolating Slasher and selling him on the outsides and making it a bit harder for Abizi and Simp on the insides, knowing that their outside flanks were now compromised. And there was a lot of rounds. A lot of the rounds he died for it, but a lot of rounds he paid off. But it was a risk and reward thing that Ultra did. There was a lot of rounds where Kleenex flanked through the top balcony, like almost every round. He got sniffed out a couple rounds by Cell. He tried different routes. He was constantly making FaZe think, because most teams, when they played FaZe on El Silo, did not flank. They kind of just gave. They kind of just gave FaZe the inside, let them plant, and we're just like too scared to do anything. Like the places they would be, what would be places FaZe expected, like on their side. And when teams try to push from the outside, they didn't do it with their SMGs. They tried taking the AR approach on the outside, and Slasher and Cell were countering them very well on the outside. But they tried a different approach with SMGs, specifically Kleenex flanking the top sides, which kind of made Slasher like a bit useless on the outside. He was having constant battles with Scrappy throughout that map, and Ultra just did a very good job at countering them throughout this map. Like FaZe actually didn't really play this map bad. They just got countered very well. And Abizi, usually like the first blood king on this map specifically, didn't get a single first blood. Kleenex with 3 first bloods completely took over Abizi's shine on that map. And I think Ultra played it very well. They really did their research on how FaZe played this map and did a excellent job countering it. And we'll go more in detail to that specific map throughout the coming weeks. And then the control, I mean, hotel control is pretty straightforward. Offense is clearly more favored now than defense, and on defense, the majority of the time, you just let them have A. Then when it comes to B, you're just focused on getting bedroom control and just like not getting wiped, because if you get two down and you have no one in bedroom, it's like most likely a guaranteed cap for the other team. So I kind of feel like FaZe threw away, I think they threw away offense or defense. We might have to go through this map too, but they threw away, I'm pretty sure they threw away an offense, and then Ultra was able to win that defense, and then Ultra had the offense and they won 3-1. Definitely a map that FaZe could have won but did not. You have to commend a team when they're able to capitalize on another team's mistakes and not let the team make mistakes and still win the map. So not really much to say, but they did get heavily outslayed throughout this whole series, but they were just playing very fundamentally correct. They kept their composure and were able to pull out these wins. They almost like weathered the storm of FaZe. Like, sure, you could get these kills, but how much are these kills actually going to mean? And Mercado, FaZe is very up and down in hardpoint, more down than up. I every time I see them play a map for Mercado, I'm almost like shaking my head, because it's not like they're bad at the map, but I just know warranted every time they play it, there's going to be mistakes made on this map, and there's always mistakes made. They always punish themselves. I never feel when they play this map like a team's really like dominating them, except for a time they played LA Thieves like back in the day when they really got punched on this map. But most of the time when top teams play this map, it's like very back and forth, comes down to the wire. But so many times, and it was very unfortunate that FaZe is one of the worst teams at holding hills when they have a setup, and they're playing literally the best team at breaking hills in the CDL. So just that alone did not do FaZe any favors. Multiple times they had specifically P2 on this map, and we could even probably say P6 as well, which is in the exact same building. So many times it almost gets frustrating to the point where a team of this caliber should just not be getting broken, especially when they have 4 people all set up. There's just no way they should be getting broke that easily. It's one thing if like maybe on the second or the third wave, but they're literally getting broken first wave, and you're just like, it's almost like they're just turning into plumbers. Like they just like after the last major that they won, after Major 2, they even said they still have to work on a hard point, and I see no progress in their hard point from the last major. In fact, you could even say they probably look better at hard point the last major than they did this one. Just a lot of mistakes. I kind of feel like now it's at the point where the control could go back and forth for them if they tighten up hotel control, which is a majority of the time the map being played. People most of the time veto fortress control, and it's either LSC or hotel, but hotel gets played most of the time. If they can tighten up their hotel control, which could be a back and forth map. I mean, sometimes if you're on, the map's super easy, but if you're off and like you feel like you're playing correct, it could just not go your way. It's a map that literally comes down to discipline and staying alive in bed, like most of the time on defense. That's literally what hotel comes down to most of the time, and it's just not getting wiped. You always have to be trading lives, or you just have to put pressure on defense, holding bed and making them spawn out kitchen and making sure that they aren't able to get anywhere near the point. But like the second you get 2 wiped, 3 wiped, and there's no one in bed, it's like a guaranteed cap on that B point. But a lot of mistakes on this Mercado hard point, which is gonna be another map that we break down. FaZe actually had like a pretty good lead at one point. I think they had like a 100-point lead at some point, or like a 90-point lead, and it just slowly withered away. They had like a 90-point lead, and they had control of, I'm pretty sure it was P2. It was probably like on the second rotation of P2, and they had control of it. They gave up. They literally gave up P3. No, I'm pretty sure they gave up P3, and they let Toronto have majority time of that. Said, okay, we're gonna get the next one. They set up in the next one, got broken that one too. I was just like, Bro, like, how is this console? No, it was P5 and P6. Yes, they gave Ultra a majority of the time on P5, P6. We'll go over it later this week, like I said multiple times. And then they set up for the next one, thinking, yeah, we'll let them have that time. We'll grow our lead back. And then they get broken again. And then Ultra completely cut the lead. And I was just like, man, they really need to work on their holds. A team of this caliber with the players that they have, like literally top tier, S tier players on their team, should not be getting broken, I feel. And I've been listening to a lot of thoughts throughout the COD community. I've been listening to a lot of opinions. I've heard stuff that Parasites said about Celium and other people like agreeing and all that stuff. Like a lot of people talking about like a pacing issue with FaZe, and it's hard to like even think about it when they do win. You're kind of thinking everything's fine, but like if you really like deep into it, probably something I have to do a lot more research on in this 2 weeks off. But I do see it a lot of times on the map. I even said it back in Vanguard, but I want to preface by saying he is he is the best player in the world at being that final line of defense. Like when his team goes down and you need that guy to like keep the kills and like stay alive for his team to come back and help, he is bar none but the best player. He is like the best like rock on the map to have as a term to being like that last line of defense guy and just the guy anchoring shit and holding that power position. There's no one better in the league than holding a power position and just staying alive for his team, then Celium. So I want to preface that. But sometimes it is a detriment when he does play his live and he baits his teammates, and there are times where he can be more aggressive and that would help. I've always wondered throughout the years why he's not just like the main AR and they didn't get a flex, but FaZe is in an interesting position, I feel like, where they have a solid core trio, and the last person they need a veteran. And I think they realized that throughout like the years, like they need like that guy that could rally the troops, that guy to keep them composed. That's why they got RCDs last time. And then when things didn't work with RCDs, they picked up Slasher. They need like that kind of player. They realize they don't need another cracked person. They have 3 cracked players on their team. They need the gel to bring it all together, which is almost what I said OpTic needed. They needed like the gel to bring it all together. But I mean, we'll get into that later. But yeah, that's literally why they picked up Slasher. But then I'm like looking at it because I always thought Cell was like better off as a main AR because I've watched him like the past 3 years and he's basically played that role. We have seen him pick up a sub and be super aggressive, and yeah, but like a majority of the time he's like that slow AR on the map, and I'm like, why is he even a flex at this point? Might as well be the main AR. But like, I guess it's just like a personnel thing. Like, what flex are they going to pick up? That would be that gel, that rock that brings the whole team together, and not the rock in game, like on the map movement wise, but like mentally wise, like that leader on their team. That's literally what they need. But that's what Slasher brings, so it almost like makes Slasher play like a completely different role. And like when people brought up pacing issues, it's like they basically have 2 main ARs because Slasher's been a main AR his whole career. So you basically have 2 main ARs and 2 subs, and sometimes aBeZy could be like the most aggressive person on the map and he doesn't have anyone else applying pressure. Like we saw how NYSL played in Major 1. They had so much aggression on the map that every respawn looks so easy, and I kind of feel like FaZe could be at that point where if everyone more unanimously is more aggressive on the map, there should be nobody stopping this team at all. Like, there should be nobody stopping this team. If they're able to hold hills, like, they have the personnel to just wipe teams apart and just slay people. They just have to figure out how to put it all together, not get broken so easily. That's mostly the main thing, is, like, how easily they get broken. They get broken super easily, ridiculously easy, to a point where, like, you think they're, like, a bottom team in the league with how easily they get broken. But, a lot of things to work on in their hard point. We'll go more in depth to it throughout the week. But yeah, they just weren't able to pull out that Mercado. They made a lot of mistakes, choked a pretty significant lead, rotating on hills when they had the lead, thinking they're going to hold the next one. And just by 10 seconds. So like you think when they're holding P2 and they had 4-man setup and they got broken easily, you think that one hill, if they didn't get broken easily, like they would have won the game. So like they're still a very pretty decent team at breaking hills and everything above, but they just have to focus on holding hills and maybe applying more pressure on the map, as a unison, and maybe like Cell playing a bit more aggressive, even though he plays a vital role on this team. And not saying he's a bad player at all. Like a lot of people might take what I'm saying like the wrong way, but if you know, you know. But Ultra played very disciplined, took advantage of his mistakes. You could argue like this whole series could have went a completely different way if it went to Hotel S&D. I mean, who knows what could have happened? Like it's always like games or two where you just think, oh man, you know, it could have went a different way. But yeah, but that was that series. Ultra played very well. Did not expect that result to happen. I think most people predicted FaZe. There were just like a handful that predicted the other way. But OpTic Texas versus Boston Breach. There's not really much to break down in this series. It just looked like OpTic still riding on that wave of momentum from the losers, and then Boston coming down. It just looked like Boston was playing with no energy today. They had a lot more energy when they played them in the winners game round one, as we saw, but just looked like Boston was just gassed out. Like they won like the S&D, and like the control is pretty close, but like I just feel like overall on respawns, like even though it's like a 3-2 game, I just kind of feel like I still feel like they got mopped. I just like even from the beginning, I felt like there was like no hope for them in this fucking series. But like maybe if it went fucking Fortress S&D, like that map's pretty mixy, could go back and forth for OpTic every time like they play it. And Boston Breach is pretty actually not bad at that map either. So like if it actually went map 5, who knows what could have happened. But I just don't think Boston Breach was getting there. Like as we found out at this major, like people should not be playing OpTic at Fortress Point. They're just way too good at that map. They're 100-point clubbing teams on this map for fun now. We're gonna get into like the next series where I had a lot to say about that one. But overall, I just don't think Boston Breach came out with any fire. As we see the statistics, not a single person went positive. But fucking Vivid. I mean, he has very up and down games, but I think overall he's just like he ends up being like somewhat consistent just with the amount of engagements he has and the pressure he applies on the map. But like overall, like sometimes you could argue things could be better. There's people talking about like changes, but like you could, but like I just don't know. I don't feel like they need any changes. I kind of feel like they have a pretty good roster. Obviously, you would say this roster is probably like capped off at like top 4. Can't see them going any higher, but like not every team is going to be a top 3 team, and like being a top 4 team in the game, nothing bad about that. And like we could even argue like their run. They had a pretty easy run. Granted they got top 4, but like they did beat OpTic in this round, and they actually should have beat Ultra. This is a game that they trolled that we will be going back on during these 2 weeks. They actually did troll this game. They actually could have won to winners final and actually gotten actually a lot deeper. But yeah, but they had a pretty easy run. Like they beat OpTic and then they beat Vegas Legion, and that was it. So that's 2 games and they're fucking top 4 already. So it doesn't really tell like the true story, but I mean, granted the match against Ultra, like they probably could have beaten them. Maybe they were still kind of down about that and they took it into the bottom game, but we will be getting into more of this losers bracket stuff in a sec, so I'll keep that in check for a sec. But yeah, overall OpTic just came out with the quickness and respawns. They were frying, everyone frying, as you can see from the statistics, everyone positive, everyone on Boston Breach negative overall KD series. But I mean, Vivid's still doing pretty good statistically. Obviously stats don't tell like the whole story, but he was still fucking going at him, like significantly more kills than everyone else on his team. Everyone on his team kind of like died of death, and we never see Awakening do this bad. But I think maybe it was a lot mental and just like didn't come out with any fire today. OpTic has the fans on their side. They have the momentum, And just those cards, all the stars did not align for Boston in that series. And then we go on to OpTic Texas versus Atlanta FaZe. I saw the vetoes right away, and I was like, what the fuck is FaZe doing? I literally shook my head right away, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Everyone at this point already knows that FaZe do have a mental block on whenever they play against OpTic. I don't need to read you all the statistics. You guys probably heard like the record against OpTic in like the CDL era, and like it's very easy to see in like the game whenever they play OpTic. A lot of the times they just don't play the same like at all. They just play like you could like even just spectating them, like not even if you're spectating in third person, you could just see like how like it almost feels like they're second guessing everything that they do, and they're just doing out of character stuff. I don't know. It's just very easy to see that they play very, very different when they play OpTic. And when I saw the vetoes and I was wondering why they chose to play him on Fortress instead of Hydro, the only thing I could think about are two things. Number one, they didn't want to have to watch the water all the time and see Shotzi swimming. And number two, they're probably thinking a little bit of an ego pick. They're probably thinking, man, if we could come out here and we could gun OpTic and smoke them on this map, they will be dead. And like that probably is what would have happened if FaZe came out and they won this Fortress hardpoint. I think FaZe probably would have ended up 3-0ing them, because that would have taken the win out their sails, their best map going head to head. And this is like a map when you lose it, and you lose it by a good margin, you're getting gunned. Like, you're getting gunned. This is a high engagement, like, gun-to-gun map. A lot of things are close range on this map. And I think FaZe was thinking, man, if we take it to them and we're able to slay them on this map, then we could really take control of the series. But I would have played it safe, honestly, and I would have, like, Atlanta FaZe is not really good at that many hardpoint maps, but like Hydro, they would have stood a way better chance. It's more fundamentally sound than Fortress, and OpTic clearly have the formula of playing Fortress better than any other team. I would have just taken the chance more on Hydro, honestly, because Hydro is usually a close map when all teams play. It usually comes down to like the final P1 and P2. But I saw this right away, and I was like, man, even before the game started, I'm pretty sure I have it up on my YouTube. If you go back on the video I have of it, I was just like, man, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. And this ended up being, they said, the fastest hardpoint map of the year. And they just 100-point club, and they just smoked them. It never looked. This was like the Boston Breach map one that OpTic played. Never really looked like they stood a chance on this map. OpTic does a very good job of like getting off to a big lead. They get off to a big lead. Like the last like 3 times I've seen them play this map, they get off to like an 100-point lead, and then the other team just can't come back after that, and they just build on it. I'm really gonna have to like look into what makes OpTic so good at Fortress hardpoint. I will report back in a separate video. But OpTic came out and smoked the first map, and I was thinking, oh man, it's over. But FaZe actually bounced back on the S&D, played S&D very well. Shotzi tried to flank almost like every round. It got countered basically every round he tried to flank. If you saw the kill feed all the time and where he was on the map, literally try to flank every round. And I think FaZe kind of learned how Ultra was doing it and countering him, and thinking maybe other teams would try to follow suit and do the same thing, and they knew Shotzi would be the one doing it. So they literally almost waited for him like every single round and just fucking smoked him every single round. So they did a good job of countering Shotzi, because I think that's something FaZe has to do whenever they play OpTic. If you could just stop Shotzi from being that ratty player making the routes, if you could stop his success rate, this whole team gets slowed the fuck down. This whole team gets slowed down. And like this map was an example of it. They're able to slow down, but like Shotzi put up like a 1.74, no, not a 1.74, geez, a 1.40 this series, and you just saw he was in the corners, getting the kills, challenging when he needed to, like gunning, like Plague, like Shotzi at his best. And it's like if they were able to just counter him, this series probably went a different way. And once again, FaZe got a hotel control, and they control An offense, it's so crazy. Like most of the time when we see controls, it's like, oh, this team trolled like a defense. But now it's like if you troll offense on this map, you're kind of in a bad spot because defense is a lot less favored. And I think this is just another phase troll counter with OpTic playing this map very well. Shotzzy put up 4+ K damage on this map. He was going off on this map. So it's a combination of just OpTic firing and just FaZe not really playing this map well at all. It's a very up and down map for them. But definitely a map they have to tighten up on for sure. Definitely a map they have to tighten up on for sure. And then a Mercado hardpoint map 4, and I saw this map. I saw FaZe played against Ultra, and I was thinking, man, it's over. They're going home. And sure enough, they just, I don't know, like it's the exact same thing. I already like went into great detail of how FaZe played Mercado. They did a very good job because OpTic went off to a lead, and FaZe actually did a good job of bringing it back. But then just rotations mixed with getting broken so easily. A lot of times they're going for scrap that they shouldn't be going to, and then like I specifically saw on P2. There's like 18 seconds left, and I think FaZe invested three people to get 18 seconds of scrap time on P2, and there's only one guy at P3, and that guy got killed, and then OpTic had full control of P3, and they already got a majority time on P2 because FaZe got broken on it again. So it's like there's just a lot of fundamental mistakes that I kind of feel like should have been tightened up for Major 2, but like haven't seen the progress from Major 2 to Major 3, so they haven't made progress on it. They definitely got to go back to the drawing board on how to play hardpoint, because it used to be like FaZe was dominant at respawns and they were bad at S&D, but now they went back to being good at S&D and bad at majority respawns. But going into the major, like they said, their hardpoints like pretty much 50-50. Like they could lose some and they could win some, but a majority of the time they lost them. So I mean, definitely something they got to go back to the drawing board from. They really got to get better. They really have to widen their hardpoint map pool. Their hardpoint map pool, get solid at control hotel, and make sure your S&D is still top notch. And I don't think anyone's fucking taking out this FaZe team at all. If they just tighten up their hardpoint, get good at these hardpoint maps, you could just veto Fortress hardpoint every time. They're already a pretty good Embassy hardpoint team, but if they could tighten up every hardpoint map besides Fortress, they could just Fortress hardpoint every series, get good at every other map, tighten up on their hotel control, and make sure their S&D stays top notch and the best in the league. And literally no one will touch this team, but definitely a lot to get back to the drawing board for them. They got 2 weeks until Major 4, and we'll see how that works out for them. But yeah, so I want to also make a point. OpTic's run before we get into like the final game. OpTic, some would say actually had a very fortunate losers bracket run. So let me elaborate on that. So they went down here in this Royal Ravens match. So I think Royal Ravens, I already seen lots of tweets on this, were actually like the catalyst for this, because Royal Ravens choked and could have won 3-1. But they trolled that hard point, went to the S&D and lost it. I think they even trolled like a control 2. That probably might be a series I have to go back on for sure. That's definitely a tipping point. There's like at least like 5 matches with specific maps that I could go back on. So that's going to be a fun 2 weeks for me going back on this and providing you guys insight on that. But London did troll that hard point. They had the lead and were able to close it out, but completely dropped the ball. OpTic won, took it map 5. Royal Ravens didn't stand a chance at map 5. So London could have sent them home, and that would have changed a lot, because FaZe play any other team in this losers bracket, and they're probably going to win, honestly, and they're probably going to go back to the finals. And a best of 7 against Ultra, you could argue that FaZe could actually win, but FaZe playing like their kryptonite teams, Surge and OpTic, and I mean, like they lost like the Ultra, but I mean, already like explained that series. It's definitely a series that they could have won, but Ultra just played very disciplined, did their homework. But Anyways, back to what I was saying. So London could have beat them. So then OpTic wins that one, goes into a game against Mutineers. It's Mutineers. You could beat that team. And then they go into a game against Surge, and I was like thinking, if this game was like winners round one, like at the starting of any tournament or whatever, I think like majority of the time Surge probably takes this, but Surge just came off a heartbreaking 5-5 loss to FaZe when they had the man advantage 3-2, and they got two-pieced, and I think they were just mentally checked coming as a team who's now on a momentum wave after that close game to Royal Ravens and then making quick work of Mutineers, and they're on a run, so they already got the fire momentum going against a team that's just heartbroken after losing a close game. Something that won't leave your head for probably like weeks on end, having to go back like the next day and play this. So I think OpTic got fortunate with a team that just had a mental block and they fried them. Pred still performed very well in that series, but everyone else was pretty checked. And then they go after Boston Breach, who just went down to Ultra, didn't have any fire in their sails, won that, and then faced a team who just lost and also has a mental block against them, and then came into the finals. This is just hindsight, but I'm just explaining to you, they had a pretty, like, sometimes, like, the stars have to align in order for you to make a loser bracket run. Like, we saw LA Thieves, but theirs was more like the stars didn't align for them. It was more like they just fried every team. But then they got into that losers bracket match against OpTic that OpTic actually could have won at that Major II, but trolled, I believe, and then Thieves won that. So there's just a lot of fortunate stuff that happens in these loser bracket runs. Most of the time, it's not going to be you frying every team. Like, sometimes there has to be just a lot of stuff that goes in your favor, or just mentally, momentum wise, and we're seeing how big momentum can take you, mixed with like being in the losers bracket. If you start off losers bracket 1 and you win, and you're fighting these teams, like, you have like actually such a big advantage because you're playing teams that like just came from a loss, maybe not in like losers round 1, but once you make it by losers round 1, you go into round 2, and you're facing teams that like just lost the game that could have gone to winners final. Like, you're facing vulnerable mental teams that obviously some of them don't get as affected as others, but like it does take a mental toll sometimes. You do get checked sometimes, and like sometimes being in the losers is actually a big advantage because you're constantly winning games going on, and you're facing teams that are losing, dropping down on you. But then by the time you get to the finals, you could be gassed out. We've seen it happen before, but I will give kudos to OpTic. Not only did they make one of the greatest loser bracket runs, but they did not look gassed out in this final. Like, I would think with the amount of matches they played, the amount of back and forth series, a lot of these were actually back and forth series after the Ravens match. They like kind of sweeped a lot of these teams, not gonna lie. But then it got to Ultra, and I think Ultra just did their homework very well, on top of their players performing when they have to. Scrappy, I think, is like their X factor. When he plays bad, their team does bad. We've seen at the other major when they played FaZe, when they got back-to-back 3-0'd, he was just not playing good at all. He was getting fried. And I think when he gets fried, your main Slayer gets fried. It kind of brings down the rest of the team, because you don't have that guy getting all the kills. That kind of opens up the map for you and like helps you a lot. But he really performed in this final, and this is definitely a series where 2 maps specifically I have to probably go back. I'm going back on are the Hydro Hardpoint and the Hotel S&D. OpTic were up 4-1 on this one and trolled it and lost 6-5. So you're thinking if they won that map, won LSL Search, maybe some can win different. Even the Hydro, a lot of the water routes, they're just taking way too many water routes. Like, I was watching this game. I even have it up on my YouTube if you want to go back and watch it. I was just throwing my hands up in the air. The amount of times they're in the water, and this is where I'm talking about. Ultra did their homework and countered it. We saw a majority of the map, Scrappy and everyone else just constantly look in the water. How many kills did Scrappy and Insight get shooting people out the water? So many times. There's even a point in the game where Shotzi and Hook were both in the water at the same time trying to get to P2, and both of them got 2-piece in the water. It's like, when you have players in the water that much, it's like you're kind of leaving Dashy and Ghosty in like a pretty like rough spot because now they don't have like the SMGs like helping them apply pressure on the map, baiting for them, opening up lanes for them. Like they're now in the water, and now Dashy and Ghosty either have to wait or they just have to go themselves. And I just think they took the water routes way too many times. Like the second they realized they're playing people that finally countered it and weren't just letting it happen. And we saw even Shotzi going 19-27. He just kept taking the water routes because I think he was so used to playing teams because teams just weren't learning. And he was able to just flank all the time and get the water routes. But now he was finally playing a team who just said, no, Aquaman, we're not fucking letting you rule the water again. But there were a lot of times in the map where Ultra were in the water as well, but clearly not as many times as OpTic. And Kleenex did die a lot of times in the water too, Shotzi, but overall, like the ARs did a very good job of just watching the water and stopping Shotzi and Hook. Like they really shut down Shotzi and Hook from like taking routes on this map. Like did a very good job. They did their homework very well. Not much to break down in the hotel control, except Ultra did choke offense, but bounced back with a really good fucking defense hold. And then like they ended up losing anyway, and not much to break down in Fortress S&D. But this was a map where the first two rounds Insight had two unfortunate happenings. The first one, he was laying down by A-bomb, both players run by him, kills one, but Daniel Ghosty turns on him. Completely unfortunate. I think he was just missing as opposed, and also I just think like the other body was kind of in the way, so maybe he couldn't get the shots off. Whatever the case was, you guys go back and watch it. But that round he trolled, and then like the other round, he got really bad timing and didn't see Hook laying on the side of the bomb where he just was the previous round, and had two unfortunate rounds. And you're arguing if he won those two rounds, they could have been up 5-4 and probably could have won that map and been up a lot earlier. But OpTic were able to take that one. The hotel was not even close. Ultra played it very well. Super well. Like it was like a world-class hardpoint performance from them. Like very fundamentally sound. You saw everything clicking on that map. But yeah, like the real swingy maps were like the Hydro and like the hotel. Like the S&D, I don't really think was any fault of OpTics. I just feel like Ultra just slayed very well. Like so many times got 3-4 down and just wiped them, and were able to just push out their spawn and just keep them back there, keep the live advantage, and keep slaying them. Ultra did a very good job in this control of slaying out OpTic, like very well. So many times just clean wiped them and just were able to get map control. OpTic were able to bring it back when Ultra up 2-0, but then Ultra got the defense and just slayed them out and closed out the series and won Major 3 by beating OpTic 4-2 in the finals. So overall thoughts, Ultra had a very good run. There's just a lot of like things that happen in a major that you sometimes can't predict. Like there's so many games you go back on, like a bunch of what ifs. Like Boston Breach choked that series against Ultra, could have won that. Ultra would have been down losers bracket way earlier. Granted, they would have been playing Legion. They would have played OpTic down there. Maybe it could have been like different in best of 5. So Ultra could have been down. Boston Breach would have been going to the winter finals. FaZe could have beat Breach and been in the finals. Like there's so many things that could have happened that could have made things go like a different way. We could have gotten an OpTic FaZe final, and maybe in a best of 7 could have went a different way for FaZe. Ravens could have taken out OpTic, and OpTic would have been out, and then this whole losers would have looked a lot different. Surge wouldn't have choked like the game 5 against FaZe. They could have moved on. Like there's just so many different ways this major could have went, but it went the way that it went because that's just how it goes. A lot of unfortunate things happen, and yeah, so I think that kind of like concludes. Congratulations to Ultra. Super happy for Scrappy and especially Hixie. Man, what a just great dude. You see that guy, and just what a great dude. And it's he's a great dude because you see how many people are vouching for him. A lot of people just thought he was like a role player that couldn't put up the slaying numbers, but we saw on LAN he was very good. not only KD wise, but on the map, doing his thing fundamentally, being like that missing piece to this Ultra team to make them click, to make Kleenex and Scrappy play better. And he does a very good job at playing his life, more than a lot of people. Does a very good job at playing his life. And I think a lot of people have to do that a bit more. Obviously, aggression and pressure on the map is great, but you do see some times where lives are thrown away, and sometimes holding on and valuing your life sometimes goes a long way. And he was just the missing pieces Ultra Team needed. Never would have thought this, because I was thinking they were faded when they dropped Standy, but they proved me and a lot of people wrong. I saw it in the very first game when I just saw how much better Kleenex and Scrappy were playing, because they had a guy. Because before was Standy. Standy's a super player, but it's like when you have three super players on it, who's doing the dirty work? Can't be like the AR doing all the dirty work. You kind of need like a balance, like, you know. And now they have a great balance, and now they're on top. They can tell everyone to suck it for doubting them on that roster change, because a lot of people did, including me, like I just said. OpTic made a great losers bracket run. A lot of things went in their favor, but I mean, a lot of things went a lot of teams' favor. A lot of teams won whatever. Like you already heard me say it before. But yeah, this week, I mean, in these coming 2 weeks, we will be seeing teams make roster changes. I think that's pretty much inevitable, and I will be here to react to everything in the 2 weeks. I'm watching everything like a hawk. Finally on my content grind. If you enjoy my content, I mean, please subscribe. I mean, that would really that'd really help your fucking boy out, you know? Really help your boy out. And I mean, I guess we could quickly talk about Thieves. I think they just had like an unfortunate circumstance. I guess they just didn't come out firing. And I think after that map 1 loss, when they trolled that map 1, I think that just mentally got to them, and like Vegas were able to take control of that. So there's a lot of teams that were out early that don't need to worry about making a roster change, like NYSL, LA Thieves. And I mean, I don't see Surge making changes, but I do see changes coming with not a lot of teams at this point, like Rocker. Maybe Ravens could make a change, like, bro, like, Ravens are an organization that has a lot of money, but bro, I'm thinking if they got Cramp, like a lot of people were saying Cramp should replace Vivid, and that would elevate that Boston team to maybe hit top 3. But I'm thinking if Cramp goes to Ravens and plays for Paul X, who's not even an SMG, so sorry Paul, but that team could look fucking different actually. Like Ravens, by the end of like these Major 3 qualifiers, showed they're like a way better team, and like they were just like in a bad rut, but now they finally got all together, and at this major they could have beat OpTic, but they just trolled. And I'm thinking, if you get an actual SMG who's an SMG like Cramp, like this team could look way better. Like I just thought about that right now. Like they need a better SMG than Paul X. I'm so sorry. Paul's a flex player. He's not an SMG, and I don't know what happened in that camp. Obviously, Nasty's actually playing a lot better as a flex, but they need a natural SMG, and a player like Cramp could elevate this team to the fucking moon, actually. Could actually make this team make a run at the next major and actually do way better in qualifiers. But that's just another thing. But, I mean, I don't see Mutineers making a change, but we'll go through that all the weeks. Expect power rankings, roster change reactions, and breakdowns of certain maps from this major, all leading up to the Major 4 qualifiers on March 31st, where we kick it off with a banger game. I'm being completely sarcastic because it's actually not a banger game at all. Take a look at this fucking first match to start us off on the Major 4 qualifiers. You're going to be so excited for this one. Hold on, I can't even pull it up. For some reason it won't let me pull it up, but it's Boston Breach versus Vegas Legion. So excited for that one. Basically, it's all good teams playing all bad teams. It's Vegas against Legion, LA Thieves against Mutineers, and FaZe against Royal Ravens. I guess that one will be better because Ravens are actually in a lot better place than they were before. But with that being said, guys, that is my Major 3 reactions to Championship Sunday and overall. A lot of up and downs, man. You can't predict these majors. Like when stuff happens and teams lose and teams win, close games, close that, it affects mentals and your bracket get busted very easily. It's just the way professional Call of Duty goes. The best esport in the world. Had a blast going through all these games. Literally sat in my chair for like 24 hours a combined 3 days. Um, Not good for my sanity, but I will recover. But with that being said, guys, this has been Burrito. See you later, guys. Peace.